if there's an earthquake, you have to respond.
Yes.
You have to bring water and shelter. But in the long run, we have to ask the question, why are people hungry? Why has there been 3 generations of poverty in Camden, New Jersey? And asking those deeper questions forces you to engage powers and principalities. So you have to be engaged with politics, with the government.
Those questions seem like a really important questions, since there may be some people who might think that the work of Shalom communities are more or less charity work, and
Right.
they're just to maintain the status quo, and they're not really working as an agent of change.
Change agents, that's right. When communities of Shalom stress and try to work on systemic issues, everyone knows the proverb, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Shalom goes the next step and says, but what if the lake is polluted? What if there's no public access to the water? What if there's been industrial waste and there's no more fish in the lake? The systemic question, the systemic solution is to regain power, regain control of the lake. So you have to confront the government, the corporations, to address that issue. If all we do is give fish, if someone's hungry, you have to give them a fish. You have to do that, and I'm not saying that there's not a role and a need for relief work and for charity work. When people are hungry, we have to feed them. We're called to feed them. But we train people through our training initiatives to look at the deeper issues, confront the powers and the systems that keep people poor, that perpetuate the status quo. So in fact, we're doing just the opposite. We're challenging the status quo. At the same time, we have soup kitchens and food pantries, and we have after-school programs and that sort of thing, and we have teaching programs. But we also address the deeper issues. So there's a huge difference between systemic change and charity work.
Now, some people might say, well, systemic change is great, but they actually excuse those people from their own individual responsibilities. People are poor because they are lazy. They don't know how
Right.
to get themselves with education and try to apply themselves
Right.
to different jobs and so forth. What would you say to those people who might say your work is, again, not just to maintain status quo, but also making people not rise up to what they are actually potentially able to?
Right. We have ethos in this country of individualism, that if you work hard enough, you can get ahead. And we do an interesting exercise in our training program. We put up on the board, why is this person hungry? And most people will answer, as you said, they'll say they're lazy, or they just had bad luck, or they need education. So the solutions then are focused on the individual. Okay, we'll fix the person. We'll get them a job, or we'll get them trained or educated for a job, or we'll just continue to feed them. We're saying, if you look at the system that the community that the person lives in, fix that. So we go out of our way to reinforce that it's not just an individual. No one can survive with all the education. Look at me. I have tons of college degrees and good job, and I couldn't survive if others didn't help me. If someone didn't help to babysit or help to do this or help to do that and nurture me and support me along the way, no one's individual attributes is enough to make it or not. We really we train people, and that's why we're called communities of shalom, to work in coalition with others.
Shalom communities are trying to address systemic issues that
Yes.
prevent people to rise up to their potentials.
Yes.
But are you also holding each individual his or her own accountability as well?
If you work with people and not for them, we have a saying, never do for someone what they can do for themselves. I believe that every individual will rise and fall to your expectations. And when people do have support and encouragement and that spiritual foundation, there's no limit to what any individual's capacity is.
In the past, you have done some important work in improving race relations.
Yes.
How has that contributed to your work for Shalom communities?
Someone told me years ago that nothing goes to waste in ministry. And I have really been blessed over the years to have worked with the state government. I was chair of the State Commission on Racial and Religious Violence. I've worked with 2 state legislators to help create bias crime initiatives. I've worked with the State Department in the state of New Jersey on community relations, because we have we're one of the most diverse states in the country. People always think California or the West Coast. New Jersey has more diversity, racial, ethnic, religious diversity than most states in the country. And living in such close quarters, we've often had conflict between racial groups, between religious groups. And I was blessed and called to work in that arena for many years. So when I came to Communities of Shalom, which again is helping communities work together, my background in race relations, religious pluralism came in handy, because I can actually apply that with the Shalom principles for organizing, community organizing, across religious barriers, across racial barriers. So to me, it's all been one continuous line. It wasn't this life there and now this life in ministry. They've all been, they've informed each other, and that work has informed the work I do now.
What would you say to those people who are already involved in Shalom communities, and sometimes you can get lost in this exciting work that you do with Shalom communities, and then forget about the gospel that was the basis of the work of the Shalom communities? And also to those who are not quite involved in Shalom communities but might be interested.
Well, to those who are already involved, I would say remain encouraged that God is every day doing a new thing, that we serve a living God, a risen God. It's the second Sunday in Easter. We serve a risen God who is alive and breathing life every day is new. So I encourage those who have been active to be faithful and to continue, because every day God does something new. Every day. Every day God does something new. And to those who haven't been involved, I would say that God also calls us to love thy neighbor. We can't be whole if we're not paying attention to those, our neighbors, to those that are next door to us, to those who live across town who can't get health care, who can't get decent education. So we're called to love our God with all of our heart and soul, and to love each other. And that's an action word. Love is an action word.
Thank you, Ms. Yanlun. It is so fitting for you to call yourself a community minister.
Oh, God
thank
bless you.
Thank you so much for the time,
you.
and thank you for all the insights and your experience, and particularly the exciting work that you're doing with Shalom communities.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us, and God bless you, and see you next time.